Hello, I'm Will Thoms. I'm a member here at Gallery Route 1, an artist member, and I would like to share my offerings, my latest show called Take a Moment. I've always enjoyed using materials that are not typically associated with art making. And that would include in many of my other shows, corrugated cardboard, scraps of wood, metal, paint that's normally used for house paint, water-based and alkyd. I think for me it's a way of discovering the beauty that resides in ordinary things. In this show, what I've done is I've used basically last week's newspapers. And these I've stained using various types of paint. And then torn. So the newspaper, the print on the newspaper is vaguely evident. It's kind of hidden in the background. So the content is really not important. What's important for me is that it creates a kind of background noise or a kind of distant hum. What I'm interested in, really, most of all, is color and texture and patina. These are very private paintings, really, and the newspaper, the little bits of word that come through is this background noise. It's the world coming in. What I really like to do is to get the colors to speak to each other. And I try to create a balance, a kind of tranquil quality and a balance. These are all done, I have a studio which is fairly small, but these are all done one at a time. When they're done, or nearly done, I set them aside. So bringing them all in, 27 of them, and putting them in the gallery was a revelation. I got a sense of what these are, what these all are. Basically a meditation, or a series of meditations. What it is, I think, in the end, is an exercise in being still. Encourages a sort of a meditative gaze. Arranging color this way it's a little bit like plate spinning. When I was a child, I watched the Ed Sullivan Show and I'd see people running back and forth with plates on long, flexible poles, trying to keep them all going at the same time, and that's what this feels like. Keep it all going at the same time. I thought a lot about the artist, the Italian artist from the middle of last century, Giorgio Morandi, who was an oil painter, painted small still lifes. muted colors. He had a lot of pieces in his studio, glass pieces, jars, bottles. He would arrange them and paint them. Very small paintings with an accent on the color and the shifts in color. And he said, to achieve understanding, it's necessary not to see the many things, but to look hard at what you do see. And I thought when I read that, that's a good invitation to take a moment. And thank you for tuning in. And please come and see the show. It's up all through November until December 1st.
Hi, I'm Joanne Weis from Louisville, Kentucky.
And I'm Ileana Soto from the San Francisco, California area.
And we're here to tell you about the exhibit at Gallery Route 1, focused on voting rights.
The exhibit is called Make a Way, and we're inspired by John R. Lewis, civil rights activist.
This series of works has been created by 4 artists around the country, myself, Ileana. Pat DaRif is from Fort Wayne, Indiana. Pat, in terms of her aesthetic, uses a lot of photographs and does a wonderful job of layering her work. Here you can see she has created a flag using just chicken wire from a farm. She grew up in a rural area. Newspaper articles on various aspects of voting, and has hand-stitched into each of this the word vote. Pat's work, you'll see some more of it, is always very sophisticated and softly layered, and just a beautiful aesthetic. This is one of my pieces. I call this The Price of a Vote. In the research that I did on voting rights and the history of voting, this piece really got to my soul. If you remember, in the spring and the summer of 1964, 3 young men who were in Mississippi trying to enroll Black African-American citizens in voting were murdered, and very little prosecution happened immediately. This piece, you can see a fire starting at a church, which instigated them to reach out to the community. The nation followed the search for their bodies, and they were eventually found 3 months later in a grave. And I think this speaks to the price that some people have paid to vote. And my thinking is inconvenience is no longer a good excuse for not voting if you don't think in terms of what some people have done.
This is my piece. It's my first piece that I did in this series. And in 2020, after the attack on our nation's capital, we made it through that crisis, and I had some hope for our new administration. But I realized that voting rights were becoming restricted in every southern state and into the Midwest. And so this I call Stained and Tattered, and it exhibits my use of paper. I just put my hand in front of the camera. Use of paper printed, this is mulberry paper, paper behind, hand stitched on, and then stitched onto linen, which I see as a kind of a representative of our, heritage of our country. And I've got some hand mending, and at that time I was hoping that we can mend the situation in the voting rights situation in our country, and we'll see.
This piece is by Valerie, who lives in Denver, Colorado. Valerie's pieces always focus on her personal experience as an African-American woman. the importance of the church in the African American community, where the church is where the community gathers and actually makes the decisions and takes action as a group. Another aspect of her work that you'll see is roots, how the roots dig deep into the community, and they are all connected and one grows out of the other. In her work, you'll also see beautifully executed African symbolism, the bird, the sun, masks, fish, the language of it. You'll also see the other thing that she is trying to communicate here, that a more perfect union includes all cultures being together, and her message, all lives matter. At this point now, we'll just take a quick look around the gallery at all of the other works created by the four of us.
You might be wondering how we all came together, living in such faraway places. We met in San Antonio, Texas, at an independent workshop given by surface design artist Jane Dunawall, the mentor to all of us. We clicked. Three of you knew each other from Louisville.
Yeah.
Moved away.
Yeah.
And kept their associations and allowed me into their very special group.
Okay. And just to comment on some of these works, you will see a lot of, this is one of Pat's works. And Pat is an expert on using photography. This is some photography that she has taken, that she has now superimposed on the red, white, and blue imagery to communicate her concern and her interest in the voting rights. When the four of us meet on Zoom on a monthly basis, and we discovered that we were all communicating our concerns and our passions using our art, and that a lot of us the four of us were actually focusing on John Lewis, and that was how we decided to put together this exhibition that is a collection of our concerns. This is one of mine, and you can see the stripes are burned, the stars. Some people have equated this to bullet holes, and the name of this piece is, this is based on The Flag Will Survive. Pat here again using, this is her look at the progression of before the Civil War down to the Voting Rights Act, and the progression from being full voting to some of what has been taken from us by recent Supreme Court decisions.
This piece is by myself, Ileana, and I printed the figure, and I saw it as a figure falling over, thought of the Statue of Liberty, and I called it Nearly Toppled. The print, I've used the print, "We will find a way, make a way out of no way," a quote from John R. Lewis. And it's given me, it's sustained me during these times. And I have, the print is about the way voting rights have been taken down.
This piece is called Tribal Voices. And as I did research into voting rights, one thing that I discovered that I had not known is the challenges that the Native American communities have in exercising their rights as citizens to vote. So simply speaking, this is the voting application in the Navajo language, and I've torn it up because to a certain extent, these individuals have barriers that we cannot imagine in actually exercising their right to vote. This is another piece of mine looking at women's suffrage and the variety of women who struggled during the last part of the 19th century, early 20th century, to get the simple right to vote. These are actual photographs that I was able to get from the Library of Congress. And what you can see in the background are signatures. I'm originally from Providence, Rhode Island, and the president of the Black Women's Associations met and they wrote and prepared and signed a resolution asking the governor of the state to please make arrangements for us to vote. It's a very simple but powerful statement. This is another piece of mine, and like the one we saw a minute ago of Pat's, I'm following the history of voting rights. The Constitution, the Voting Rights Act, the 14th and 15th Amendments, the Voting Rights Act of 1964, all of them burned through and damaged by recent Supreme Court decisions. And the signatures of the judges, who basically, in my opinion, have stripped us of our constitutional rights.
This piece is by DaRif, and it again, she has put the Constitution at the center of this piece. And you can see that it's becoming frayed and damaged. And she represents that damage in the print fabrics that she has printed herself. This piece is by Ileana and myself, and I wanted to give a nod to my Hispanic background, and the title is Votaste in Spanish, did you vote? And ya voté, yes, I voted. And I've used that motif, I've printed it on linen, and the grid that you see in red and oranges is actually mulberry paper that I've dyed. And I hope that the Hispanic peoples come out to vote. This again is Valerie White. Her pieces are so, I want to say weighty. She has used stitch and her imagery, again, the black church, people coming towards that church. And I assume that's a crow up there.
That image is actually based on a photograph she has of her great-grandfather, I believe, in a wagon going to somewhere back in the day. Here, I think, again, not only do you see people walking to the praise house, but the proliferation of roots, which is so much a part of Valerie's message, is that we are rooted as communities in each other, in our strengths, and in supporting each other in our weaknesses. And the meticulous screening and stitching always amazes me.
And this piece is called A Cloud of Witnesses. And now the last two pieces in our show are mine, Ileana, and I've gotten more abstract. This one is called Upheaval, and we are in a time of upheaval. I've printed it with large screens with thickened dyes and then fused on pieces of silk. The diagonals to make a dramatic emphasis on this time of upheaval. And the last piece that we'll be showing you in the show is called V is for Voting. And I screened this, large screens with thickened dye, and I like triangles. And I like this is what's called a whole cloth quilt. So there's no piecing in done here. And when I wanted a title for it, I said, wow, those triangles are V's. So I called it V is for Voting, and the V has, as a motif, threaded through my last 4 pieces in my Voting Rights series. We are honored to have been accepted by Gallery Route 1 to be in the visiting gallery at this is a very timely show at this. We are less than 10 days from election.
And, and I think the four of us, even though Pat and Valerie cannot be with us, the four of us are not only appreciative of the gallery for allowing us to show this work, but I think for us, it has also been an experience. We were not sure how the gallery would hang the work, but when we see it now together, beautifully arranged, and each piece speaks to the next piece. Even though we didn't design these together, we communicated on a monthly basis, but we did not design them together. We just spoke in the common language of our passion for what it is that we are as a democracy and how we want our art to communicate to those who observe it these same passions.
Yes, and the fact that all of these pieces have been integrated together and speak to each other shows the collective power of community. Mm-hmm. They are stronger than any one of us.
Hi, I'm Betsy Kellas, and I'd like to share my exhibition, Imperfect Offerings. I'm standing right outside the annex, one of 3 exhibition venues here at Gallery Route 1 in Point Reyes Station. I am an artist member of Gallery Route 1, and as I said, the artist whose work you're about to see. This is a show of monotypes, collages, and ceramics. It's an exhibition about and of things as they are. Along with decades of practice, experience, and expertise, this work bears witness to the unexpected, the unwanted, and things beyond our control that confuse us, crack us open, and change us as we live our lives. These are imperfect offerings, works that I love, works that were made with love. These are all artifacts of acceptance and authenticity, of ambiguous beauty, and with glimpses of grace. Thank you so much.